to episode 68 of the YarnderWoman podcast. My name is Melinda. You can find me as YarnderWoman on Instagram and Ravelry. We also have a Ravelry group for the podcast. You can search YarnderWoman podcast under the groups tab. Come and join in. It's a lovely place to be and there's always lots of lovely chatter. You can find show notes for this episode and every other one previous at www.yarnderwoman.blogspot.com.au. Thank you very much for joining me today. It's Friday the 2nd of February 2018. I'm sure I'm not alone in thinking, where on earth did January go? You know, yeah, anyway. I hope you are having a lovely day, whatever it is you are doing, or evening. I am off to work after recording this and I'm looking forward to the weekend, but more importantly, I am looking forward to sharing with you what I've been up to lately. So it's about, I haven't actually checked the time since I got up, it's 10 to 5 in the morning. So I've got my first coffee of the day. I'm sure it won't be the last. It's in my podcast mug. You can get these and a few other things on redbubble.com. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Any little bits help the podcast along, but yes, that makes me very happy. Especially on non-podcasting days, I like to drink from it as well. It makes me feel all nittily as well. But without further ado, let's go and broach the subject. So this lovely is made with old vintage buttons that have been put on top of each other to make this one brooch. It's got special meaning to me. I bought it when I was in Bendigo for the Australian Sheep and Wool Show in 2016, I believe it was. So the Sheep and Wool Show was held in the fairgrounds, and then at a bowling club there's another little craft venue where some vendors have gotten together, and that was where I purchased this. And lovely Shara of What Shara Made, hi Shara, is the one who told me about that other vending place, and she had bought one of the lovely brooches, and I was very happy to find one with red and black when I got there. So I unfortunately don't have the designer's or the maker's name, but speaking of Bendigo, I'm hoping to go again this year. I had hoped to go last year, but it didn't work out, so still have to work out the specifics and see if taking some time off from my job will be feasible at that time. So Bendigo is a town in the state of Victoria, which is on the eastern side of Australia. So yeah, it's not, well, I suppose it could be, you know, get the midnight flight there and stay a couple of days and midnight flight back, but I'd just be too exhausted, so it would require taking a few days off. So I will see if it's feasible, and as soon as I know, I will let you know, because I think that would be really exciting. Bendigo is sort of the equivalent of Rhinebeck in Australia, nowhere near as big, but that's like, yeah, the one really big fairground sort of outdoor festival, so who knows. But yes, very nice memories that I get from this every time I wear it. I have the finished object that is highly coveted by both the Yarnder Teen and YarnderMum, as you would have seen in last episode. This is a beautiful hat. It's the Rubies in My Pocket pattern by Sally Jane Cameron of the Pink Hair Girl Knits podcast. And I've done the slouchy version. So you can see if I hold it up to my head, it's, yeah, definitely longer than beanie length. This is in the Knit Picks Chroma Twist Bulky, and the colourway is Lupine. And I'm so happy with how this turned out. As I said in the last episode, I'll have to get more of this colourway for all the orders that have come in from my daughter and my mum. But this one is for a friend, and I'm going to use what's left over to make a really big pom-pom, which I think is going to look really good, and I think will really suit my friend's style. So I've made many of this pattern before. I'll be making many more in the future, but I really like how it turns out in this gradient style yarn, where the colours just transition through. I think it's just really, really pretty and cool. So I've ordered a pom-pom maker, one of the clover ones, which from what I hear from other podcasts and other people who've used them are the best in terms of ease and outcome. So that should arrive any day now, and then I'll show you again once the pom-pom's on. And last episode I was showing this project bag that was housing the lupine rubies in my pocket hat, and I mistakenly said it was from a homespun house, and at the time I was, you know, looking for the label, if you saw last episode, and I said, oh, must be one Molly didn't put it on, Molly from a homespun house. But I was thinking at the time, but all of my bags have a label from her, so what's happened? Then I was putting the bag away and I found this little zipper pull that had fallen off, and I went, ah, that's right. It is not a homespun house bag, so my apologies. It is from Sarah of Love Sock Wool. So that is why it all makes sense now. She puts these great bottle caps on where she puts some of the fabric and then her name on the back. So yes, my apologies. There's the clarifier. Now, speaking of YarnderWoman, she might have to wait to get a blue and pink hat, but she gets some socks in the interim. So these were my Christmas Eve cast-ons. So Danny from Little Bobbins, for the last several years, has organised everyone to start a pair of socks on Christmas Eve. And then this year, she released the pattern, was the night before Christmas, and this is it. So her designer name is Danielle George, and this is the Twas the Night Before Christmas pattern. So it's got little trees for Christmas trees here, and then the tree trunk goes all the way down the foot. I so enjoyed doing these. If you've watched before, I've mentioned that I'm not really one for patterned socks. If I'm doing a sock, I am wanting something that's just round and round and round, and something that's easy to take along with me that I don't have to think about. So the fact that I really enjoyed these speaks volumes to the pattern, because while I didn't take the leg out and about with me, because the pattern is very simple and easy to know what's coming next, but I didn't ever memorize it, so I didn't want to make a mistake. So I didn't take those out and about with me, but as soon as I had got past the trees, and yeah, please understand that it's a very simple, it's not complicated, it's just more complicated than just going round and round. But yeah, once I got past here and I was onto my heel and the trunk, they were a perfect take-around project for me. It also gave it a nice bit of interest. I think it actually was better to have the trunk on there rather than plain stockinette, because it just gave that little bit of interest. So they're mirrored, pattern on both sides. And yeah, really, really lovely project. The yarn is Junk Yarn by the lovely Kemper Ray of Junk Yarn and the podcast. And I won this yarn, which is the Elsa colourway, Elsa from Frozen, last year when she did an Instagram competition. And I pointed out last episode, maybe if I do it this way, the beauty of hand-dyed yarn is the second half of the skein is a lot darker, because I just split the skein in half, so I have leftovers from both sides. But you can see this one's got a lot more dark speckles than this side, which I think makes it really fun, because they still obviously match. They're the same colourway, but yeah, just something a bit of interest. So I'll be giving those to YarnderWoman the weekend, so I'll try and get some video of her receiving it, because as you know, if you've seen video of her before, she gets very excited and is very pleased. Next finished object is a very little quick one, but good nonetheless. This is a face washer or dishcloth, whatever you'd like to do with it, from the pattern, I think it's Nana's Favourite Complexion Washcloth, something like that. All my projects will be linked to in the show notes to my Ravelry project page, so you can see all the specifics there. This one came about because I've been doing a big clear out of my stash, resorting, tidying, and tidying project bags, which is how I found the little zipper pull. And I found a project bag that had a half-finished washcloth in it, so last weekend that was a quick project for the afternoon. I just finished it off. So it's using Knit Picks Dishy cotton, so it's 100% cotton in the pomegranate colourway. I've had this in my stash for well, quite a while, because I don't remember when I first started this. It was news to me that there was a half-finished washcloth hanging around, so it's nice and floppy. I think this will go to the charity that Sally Jane, who designed Rubies in My Pocket, Sally Jane and her daughter Rachel organised for the burns unit at the Children's Hospital in South Africa. So that'll go into the pile to send to that charity. So that was a very good one to do. I do find dishcloths are really good as a take-around project for me as well, because this pattern in particular, it's a free pattern, so not giving anything away. It's just knit 2, yarn over at every end. Then once you get it as wide as you want, it's knit 1, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, knit to the end. So very simple, easily memorised, so it's a good thing to be able to pick up and put down as quickly as you need it. So that's definitely another good one, and it's a good charity project, or for yourself or for a friend. Last episode I did a little bit of a recap of my 2017 projects, and I spoke about knitting a few things for writers who attended the Perth Writers Festival last year. At the end of last episode as well, I had some footage that showed YarnderWoman and I going to the launch event of said Writers Festival. It's actually going to be Writers Week this year. They've changed it up a bit and expanded it. And one of the people speaking, it was mostly the director and people involved with organising the program, but one of the people who was on stage who actually was interviewing the director as a way of sharing some information about what was coming up in the festival was the author Sisonke Masimang. Now, I hadn't heard of Sisonke before. She's originally from South Africa, lived in New York, but now is based in Perth. And I was just mesmerised by her. I thought she was just an amazing woman, highly intelligent, and the questions she was asking were just, so insightful. And they were speaking about her novel, or it's a autobiographical non-fiction piece, which is Always Another Country, and I'm really looking forward to getting that book and hearing more from her at the Writers' Festival. But to come back around to why I was speaking about my 2017 projects, I decided, of course, I was going to knit her a project or a present. And my favourite, the Knit Night Shawl, it came out again. So as an explanation to my colour scheme, here is a photo of Sisonke and I together. So as you can see, I believe pink may be a colour she quite fancies. I will also add she complimented my red lipstick, which was great. But when I got home, I was thinking, I don't actually have much, if any, like hot pink, vibrant pink yarn, even any shade of pink really. It's not a colour I gravitate towards. I'm not saying I don't like it, it's just not, one of in my usual wheelhouse. And I would, in the past, have had some pink when Yarn-Denise was little, but she's not into pink anymore either. So it hasn't been a colour I've bought a lot. But I was looking, and this is the Knit Night Shawl. You can see there's sort of stripes, it's particularly towards the bottom here, which I'll show you, because I've just done it in garter, so some sides you can see the pearl bumps where the colours have changed, and some you can't. It doesn't matter, it's all good. So you can see here it's striped. So this is Felici yarn from Knit Picks, one of their self-striping colourways, and I believe the colour is called Spring Blooms, and it's got this vibrant hot pink. So I just started knitting from the end of the ball. It had a little bit of this green, then it just went into the stripe sequence. So I expanded the way the Knit Night Shawl is written, which is a paid pattern, so I won't go into the specifics, but I made it longer and thinner because I thought I didn't want it to be a really big thick scarf or shawl. I just wanted it to be longer and just something you could flip around. So I extended it, made it longer. So as you go along, you can see obviously the stripes get thinner, and in some places towards the top there weren't even necessarily a full garter ridge of the two lines of each colour. So for example, at some ends, like down this end, you can see the pink doesn't even extend. So the pink has stopped here. And similar for other colours, it's just that one's the easiest to show. So I was thinking it's great, there's lots of pink in it, but I wanted more pink, more bang. So you can see at the top here, it's much thicker. I had two skeins of the Spring Blooms colourway. So I knit through, I think, most of the first one. I didn't finish the full one, but I knit through till I'd used all the pink of the first one. Then I got the second ball and I just went through and I pulled out the pink and just knit all the pink, and I got, I believe it's 4 garter rows. Yeah, 4 garter rows, garter ridges, so 8 rows, then 1 more row across and then a bind off. I did the Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off, and it was right down to the wire. I was actually thinking I was going to have to rip out the final row and redo it because I was running out. So there's a couple of places along, let's see if I can see it, hopefully it's not that noticeable, but there's a couple of places where I did just a normal bind off, where you just, you know, knit one, put the next stitch over rather than doing the additional yarn over that a Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off calls for. I'm not sure if it's going to show up that well. Hang on, I'll hold it over my head where it's white, not red. It's good, which is good because I didn't want it to look too different. But yeah, there's a couple of places where along the way I just, you know, was trying to conserve yarn. As it turned out, I had something like that at the end, so there would have been plenty, but you know, it's fine because it's not that noticeable, it's not problematic, so there was no need to go back. But so yes, I can't wait to give this to her. I'm really looking forward to hearing her speak more, to meet her again, get my book signed. I haven't purchased it yet, so I can't show you. I'll purchase it at the festival. But it was great because the reason I was able to meet her after the opening, she didn't have an official meet and greet or anything like that, but it wasn't assigned seats. So YarnderWoman and I went right down to the front row, so we were, you know, 5 meters away from the speakers, which was great. I don't know why people would avoid the front row, but you know, each to their own, there's no judgment, but I was happy to be there. So after the speakers were finished, they just walked off the stage because it's all very casual. So I just, you know, waited while she spoke to people she knew, and then I just asked, I said, oh, you know, thank you very much for speaking. Could I ask you to hold my knitting? So as you'd seen in that previous photo, she did. And the Writers' Festival is obviously all about books, but what they're doing this year, they were talking about the theme is really storytelling, not so much writing, if that makes sense. They talked about that. And so they were talking about the gathering of stories. And actually they had the official welcome to country, which is a traditional Indigenous welcome. So they had the speaker giving the official welcome in the Noongar language, which is the language of the original inhabitants or original custodians of this land. And he spoke about story being important not only to his ancestors but to his father. He spoke about, it was a beautiful, very sad story about how his father never learnt to read because he was part of the stolen generation, but how his father spoke about how he'd written 3 books, and he was referring to his children. So there was that, yeah, no dry eyes there, let me tell you. But yeah, it was talking about the theme of gathering stories. So when I went and asked Sasanka if we could have a photo and she wouldn't mind holding my yarn, I said, I gather my stories through my craft. And I think a lot of us can probably identify with that because, you know, when we're knitting, we knit in our thoughts and our wishes for the person if we're giving it as a gift, or if it's something for ourselves, we're, you know, picturing what it's going to do for us, and it's the thoughts that we have at the time of knitting can be put into the project. And charity projects, I like to really put a lot of love and heart into those as well, to, you know, send off best wishes for the people. So I really like that analogy, so I think it's something I'm going to ponder more, I think, as I go along. And I'll definitely take some more photos when I am able to give this to Sasanka, and I'll let you know how that goes. So, as I mentioned, I ripped all the pink out of that previous project that I showed you. What happened to the rest of the yarn? So I went through, so each colour repeat, you can see there's a little splash of pink has gone to the blue there. Each colour repeat I just balled up, pulled out the pink, knit with that, and I've been left with all of these. While I was doing this, I was thinking another project I was wanting to work on really soon are socks for YarnderNephew. Last episode I showed you the purple Felici socks that I'd made for YarnderNiece for her birthday, her 10th birthday. Here is a photo of her receiving them actually. She was very excited by those. And after she'd had them and tried them on, I asked if she would mind if her brother tried them on because I wanted to get an idea of the size. And he put them on and he said, oh, these are the best fit for me. Last year the socks I made him were out of, I think No Maker's fingering yarn in the Bumblebee colourway with black and yellow. And Felici is a thicker sock yarn than most other sock yarns I know. It's definitely a very thick fingering, whereas the No Maker's is more of a standard fingering, if there is such a thing. So it's a bit baggy on his ankles, whereas this, the Felici fit him much tighter, but then he was saying things like, but bigger is better so that I can still wear them in the future. It's very cute. So what I've decided is I would use all of these because this colour would be much more to his taste than having the pink in. I don't believe colours are gendered at all, but he's not a fan of pink himself, so I'm obviously going to make what he likes. His favourite colour is yellow, hence last year the yellow and black socks, but this yarn has, this one especially, it's quite yellowish green, so it's good. The pattern I chose, instead of doing just a top-down tube sock like I did for YarnderNiece, is this funny one. So in a couple of recent episodes of Knitting by the Sea with lovely Lisa, hello, Saratoga Knitting, she was knitting the no heel twisted rib socks. It's a free pattern and I thought that's perfect because I would be doing tube socks anyway, but having the ribbing will mean that they'll contour to his foot a lot more, or in his ankle. It's more the point where it gets a bit baggy. So the socks I knit for YarnderNiece were 64 stitches. This one, because it's a 3x3 rib, I've done 66, so I think this is going to be just perfect. And you'll also notice, this is a toe-up sock. I have never successfully finished a toe-up sock. I've started a couple, one or two, maybe three at the most, but yeah, never liked them. Or like isn't the word. They've never been right. One I did and it was, what was the pattern? I believe it was one by Susie White, and this is the pattern was fantastic, but because I'm not used to toe up, I think it had slip stitches as part of it and that made it too small, and because I'm not used to toe up and what numbers, it just didn't work out. This is years ago, by the way. I'd probably be much more attuned to what I need in a sock to be able to knit that successfully, so I may still go back and do it. That one, and there was one other, I think I just did the toe and then just moved on with my life and pulled it out. And I will admit, I was thinking, well, this pattern would work toe up or top down, so I was tempted to just do my normal top down, but I thought, no, I will challenge myself to learn something new, because learning something new, having a growth mindset, that's what keeps our brains healthy, it keeps us growing. It's really important to do. However, a lot of the time, my knitting time is when I just need to relax, when I've run out of brain power, when I've run out of spoons. That's the terminology I heard recently from Eva of the Charm of It podcast, and she linked to an article where a person with a chronic illness, I believe it was lupus in the case of the person who wrote the article, and I'll link to it as well if you're interested, talks about spoons was just an analogy she was using, and it's really good about how people with a chronic illness often have a very set amount of energy, pain tolerance throughout their day, and once they're out of spoons, that's it, they're out. So I've mentioned previously I have rheumatoid arthritis. I am very fortunate because I respond well to the medication. I do not have as many issues and hindrances as other people do who have that condition or another chronic illness. But that spoon analogy just resonated so much with me because it makes so much sense. Sometimes I'm just done, and it's not, you know, everyone gets tired after a long day, but it's a very different thing. It's a different feeling. So all that to say, quite often when I'm knitting, I am very low on the spoon levels. You know, there might be one left, and that's, you know, I need to continue that on to be able to get ready for bed and things like that. So hence, I was tempted to just do the type of sock knitting that I'm used to. But I just took my time and I had enough energy to learn the pinhole cast on. So actually, before I talk about that, I'll talk about the pattern. So the pattern is an old vintage one that was, you know, found in a magazine. Someone has written it, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the person's name, the designer who's done it, has written it up for modern day sock knitters. Lots of detail, outlines the pinhole cast on, I think as well, the maybe the Turkish cast on, links to everything, written this out, it's great. They've just got a link to their website, so if you, on Ravelry, sometimes if there's, you know, definitely when you buy a pattern, you know, you'll get a PDF that you can download as a document that goes in your library. Some patterns, generally the free ones, just link to a website. That's fine. For some reason, on this pattern page, in the comments, there's several where people have been so rude about the fact that they can't download a PDF and, oh my goodness, you're making me go to a web page every time. It's just so rude. I mean, there were way more comments where people had said, you know, this is great, you've done this wonderful work, it's free. So sorry that you've had to experience these people being just trolls, really. You know, it's so unnecessary. Internet trolling in general is so unnecessary. When someone's put out a free pattern, you know, you could write it down. It's really simple, 6-stitch repeat. You could take a photo with your camera. You could take a screenshot. You could copy it and paste it into a Word document. Even if you didn't think to do all those things, it's still exceedingly unnecessary for anyone to be really rude to the designer. There was even something where someone had written, you know, nasty things about you should have made this a PDF. Anyway, I think tube socks are a waste of yarn. Merry Christmas. What? Really? Why people? Anyway, so I'm very sorry to the designer who had to put up with that. I'm very grateful for the free pattern. Anyway, back to the sock. So I did the pinhole cast on, and the reason for that is because it's a tube sock, that means there's no, I suppose, front and back. You can put the sock on at any angle and the toe will be exactly the same. So I thought that's perfect for a tube sock. The yarn that I've used for the toe is this lovely light grey. This is Bergère de France in Gumi 50, and the colour is aluminium. And the reason I've done that, I wanted to use a solid colour anyway so that the stripe sequence wouldn't be impacted. But also, Felici's beautiful and soft. That's why it's really lovely for a scarf, because it's so soft against the skin. And it's lovely to wear. But because it is so soft, that really fluffy merino, not when I say fluffy, I don't mean fuzzy, but you know, really soft merino, it's not as hard wearing as something like the Gumi 50, which has got that real more rustic wool feel. I'm not saying merino's not wool, you know what I mean, like general wool. And the socks I made Yarned Nephew last year, he actually, you know, poked a hole through the toe of one of them where I had used Knit Picks Stroll yarn, and then I replaced it with some black. So I thought a more hard wearing toe yarn would be definitely called for. And then I've started, once I got to my 66 stitches, I started the pattern in this. I think the colours look fabulous. So it's really interesting how, you know, when you compare the two, obviously without the pink, but, you know, it's so, things look so different when they're really spread out as opposed to stacked for a smaller circumference. So I've really been enjoying that because this is now going to use up 2 full skeins of the Felici and 2 really different projects, so it means it's been more engaging as well. I just think it's awesome. I think it looks like a snake. Apologies if you don't like snakes. I like snakes. Because yeah, it's got its, you know, like a head and then it's twisted body. So when you put it on, it'll sort of, you know, straighten up when you put it on. It's just twisting, obviously, because you're going around in a spiral. But yeah, this is such a fun pattern. Again, I usually do socks that are just straight stockinette because I can knit stockinette without looking, don't have to think about it. But this, it's 3 by 3 ribbing, and then every 6 rows you just nudge the pattern over one. So if you started knitting 3 knit, 3 purl, etc., after 6 rows of that you do 1 purl, 3 knit, 3 purl, and go run that way. So that's why it's, you know, going along that way again in the spiral. That means using it with self-striping yarn, you get the double bonus of, oh, just 1 more row, because as many of you I'm sure have experienced, when you use self-striping yarn, you do, let's see how many rows are in this, 6, 7, 8, about 8 or so on this circumference. So, you know, you do your 8 rows, oh, we're at the next colour, so then you're just like, oh, I'll just keep going till I get to the next colour. So you have that with the self-striping, but then this, it's just every 6 rounds, like, oh, we're on to the next one. So you have that double bonus, so I've really enjoyed that. I've just done, yeah, the 6 rows, so you can see, where's a good example here? You can see this has changed to the next round of patterns in the middle of there. I guess what you could do if you wanted to is do as many rows as the colour is and make the pattern that way, so it's really adaptable. I've really enjoyed doing it this way. I did do a plain stockinette round every time the colour changed, just to avoid the different coloured pearls. There is a couple of points, when you look at this, the colours look very different. Contrast. I'll find words. Haven't finished that coffee yet. But when you're knitting these 2 colours, it's not as noticeable when it transitions. So somewhere along the way there are parts where I had done a whole round and there were different coloured pearl bumps, but I can't even find them now to show you. So it's really not that noticeable because maybe there. Yeah, if you can see that, thank you for having really good look, but it's not that big a deal is my point. And yeah, Yarn to Nephew's not going to care at all. So as you can see here, I'm out of yarn. I'm right at the end of that one. So I'll be going on to the next ball. What I did when I had all these balls is I divided them up. There were some that were like this one, a full colour repeat, and then there's others where there's bits and pieces. So these ones are actually for, oh gosh, they're everywhere. These ones are for the second sock, so I kept them in a separate bag just to make sure, because otherwise I'd just be knitting away and like, oh, grab another ball, and then I'd do, you know, this massively long one sock. But this is a very cute sheepy bag. This is by Sunrise Fibre Co. This was sent to me a few years ago as part of the Tiny Owl Knits Christmas swap, or holiday swap. It's not just Christmas. It was called Tokmas, Tiny Owl Knits Tokmas. So I've got one lot in that, and the current sock I have living in this bag. This is by Bling Your String. I was actually using this for the scarf because I thought it was quite a nice starkness between the black and white bag and the very bright yarn. And I really like this bag. It's nice and floppy. It's got a zip on the top. It's just, yeah, really nice. It folds up nicely. And the teapot's very cool. So yes, I think, let me just have a look how much I've got in here. I've got this one, but you can see there's hardly any blue because some of the balls, the colours didn't transition very nicely. I had a photo on Instagram on the second ball, a couple of places where the green and pink transitioned, which was especially known because I was trying to get more pink, was just mud. The colour was okay. It was a nice orangey colour that blended, but you know, really long section that, you know, you couldn't use because you'd have this like half a round of orange. It'd look weird. So yeah, I think for this one, I'll just be going probably straight into the yellowy green because, yeah, I don't know if I'll bother putting in that small amount of blue. I did notice, I didn't realise at the time, this one here, is a few rows smaller than the previous blues. So I might but then it's probably only one round. I think that it might look a bit silly, so yeah, I might just go straight into the green. That's fine, I don't think it matters. I think, I can't remember where I got up to, maybe somewhere like this is about the foot length that I need. So yeah, I'll just use this up. I'll probably put some more grey at the top for some ribbing, and that one will be done. So this marker is to show me my beginning of the round, and that's how much I knit yesterday. I had my fortnightly rostered day off because I work full-time hours but over 9 days rather than 10, and that's how much knitting I got done, which is really good. You know, if you're somewhere like Mina Phillip or Marsha Ibuki, they could probably knit an entire pair of socks in a day, of course, as per their sock challenge last year. Or was it 2 years ago? But yes, it is not a competition, and this is how much I got knit, and I'm very happy. It's lovely. So yeah, I can't yet purl routinely without looking. I'm still a bit nervous that I'll do something weird. So in that respect, it's not as quick as a stockinette sock for me, but I'm really enjoying it. It's really, really engaging. So I'm very pleased to do something new and to have such a cool outcome. I'm actually thinking I might do YarnderWoman socks like this going forward, because as I've mentioned on the channel before and on Instagram, YarnderWoman, very unfortunately, has Alzheimer's disease, and I'm noticing when she gets dressed and she puts her socks on herself, sometimes the heel ends up on the front of her foot, so it's just this little bulge, and then it's not very comfortable for her and obviously looks a bit funny, which is fine. You want to dress how you dress, you go for you, but it's not very comfortable for her. So I was thinking, if I do tube socks, she doesn't have to worry about a heel. Not that she's worried, she doesn't know what's happening about her socks, but yes, it'll be more comfortable. So I think I might do that going forward for her as well. But yes, more on this. I shall hopefully have a full sock finished for you next time, and we'll be well on my way to the second. Another little project I've had in the go when I need something just very quick to grab is another face washer using organic yarn. Why I've stopped knitting with only 5 stitches to go, 6 stitches, I don't know. But anyway, this is similar to my finished object of the pomegranate coloured one. This is the free dishcloth pattern on Ravelry, and this is using also Knit Picks cotton, but this is the organic one. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the other cotton stash I've had for many years, because now I'm aware that non-organic cotton uses huge amounts of pesticides. So my personal, going forward, I'd be gravitating towards organic cotton. Talking about me, no judgments. So yes, that's going well. This is living in my Paddington bag, which is so cute. This was made by Kay of the Bakery Bears. So yeah, I'll just keep knitting away on that. When I need something quick and grab, if, I don't know, for example, I need to start the second toe and I'm about to run out the door, I'm not so au fait with the pinhole cast on yet that I could just do that on the go. I'd need to refer to YouTube again. So yeah, that might mean the face washer comes out. Planned projects coming up. Last episode I mentioned that I can never find any tape measures, and I haven't been able to find one for ages. We had a funny chat about it on the thread from last episode about where do they all go. I found one, so exciting. While I've been going through my stash, I found one tucked into a project bag. So that meant I could take the measurements for the Yarnder team so I can get on with starting her knitted dress. I am going to be making the, I believe it's Amagansett dress pattern. It's one I purchased a while ago because I was meaning to make this dress a while ago. But now I've taken her measurements, so I can start swatching on the weekend and get that happening. So more on that next time. But yes, I was very pleased to find the tape measure. And I've had the yarn for that project for quite a while because I was meaning to knit it for a while. So that will be able to count in a knit-along I'm going to participate in. It's the What Shara Made stash busting knit-along. Oh, so Shara, who told me about where to buy this brooch, she, for her podcast, What Shara Made, does a, I think you can enter as many projects as you like as long as you had this yarn in your stash prior to 2018. So that would be really good. And I showed on Instagram that I'm going to participate, well, it's not really participate, but I made a list in Ravelry. They've got a new tab in the projects page section where you can do a challenge. You can note how many projects you'd like to complete in the year, and then it sort of tallies up every time you finish one and enter a date that's 2018 finish date, tallies it up for you. So last year I did 45 projects, though actually it was 46 I discovered after I recorded last time. There was one I hadn't put the finish date in, so that was good. So this year I've said 50 projects because I figured that's a nice little stretch goal. I want to make more garments this year, which are obviously going to take longer, so we'll see how it goes. But towards the end of last year, there were long periods where I didn't do a great deal of knitting just because of circumstances and life stuff. So that might balance it out, who knows, but you know, it's not going to be the end of the world if I don't reach 50 projects. It's just something fun to think about. It sort of gives you little percentages as you go. So I think at the moment I've finished 6 projects. You know, some of them are very quick, like the face washer and the scarf and things like that. But it shows me that I'm 12% towards my goal. So that's quite fun. So updates to come as they are relevant. So speaking of goals, I thought that might be a good theme for a new knit along. I thought we could have one where you can knit something that's on your goal list, your resolutions, if you're doing the Make 9 challenge, or if it's something you just want to knit right now. Essentially anything is covered, but a lot of people have spoken about how they do have a list of things they want to work on. So I thought this would be a fun knit along. So there's a thread in the Ravelry group. We're just going to have one thread because we're going to run the cowl for the month of February, and some people might be making bigger projects so that, you know, it's not feasible to complete within a month. And the point of it is just to get started on something that you're planning. So for me, I'll be starting the knitted dress for the Yarnder team. Obviously I won't be eligible for any prizes, but yeah, just get in there, chat, show us project photos as you're going. If you do finish, definitely show us your finished object photo, and I'll draw prizes just from that thread where we're all chatting and showing together. So the thread is already open in the Ravelry group, and you can join in as soon as you want. You can let us know what you're planning, then you can start showing us your progress, and I'll let you know about the prizes in the next episode because we'll have some lovely things to give away. Speaking of prizes, last episode I drew from our Charity 2017 thread. As I mentioned then, we have a Charity 2018 thread as well, and there's already some wonderful things in there, so it's really awesome. Go and have a look. I had 3 prizes drawn last episode, and only one of the 3 people have yet contacted me. I will wait until I record again in another 2 weeks. That'll be 4 weeks approximately. It might even be a little bit over 4 weeks. So since I announced them, if I haven't heard from the other 2 winners by then, I will draw again from that thread because I'd like to keep the prizes going to people who are engaged and participating. Obviously they're participating in the thread, but you know, overall participation for the group. So if you did knit things for the charity cowl last year and you perhaps didn't see that episode or didn't see that section, do go and have a look. If it was you, get in touch with me, send me a personal message on Ravelry. Otherwise I'll have some new prizes to announce next time. So I've mentioned a couple of times already that I have been going through my stash and my project bags. It is so wonderful. I was just listening to the Twisted Stitches podcast with Twee and Kimberly, and Kimberly was saying she just went through her stash and put it all on Ravelry and how good it felt, or she also said it felt a bit bad that she hadn't done it, but don't feel bad, Kimberly. But yeah, I haven't done a proper check of my stash in literally years, and there was so much that I hadn't put on Ravelry yet, and it was so unorganized, and it's one of those things I've been meaning to do for, again, literally years, and hadn't. So in that respect, I feel a bit bad as well. But hey, moving on, we've done it now. So I went through what I did. It's a great feature on Ravelry. You can, on your stash page, you can export all your stash into an Excel file. Unfortunately, you can't update the Excel file and send it back in, as far as I know. If anyone knows you can do that, let me know. But what I did was I put it into Excel, I printed that out, And then as I went through, I touched all my stash, noted down if it wasn't one I had on Ravelry, I wrote it out so I can enter that up. If it was skeins where I'd used part of it, I would weigh it, cross out, you know, the original weight, and write in how much it is. I can then go and update that in Ravelry, and that means my stash on Ravelry is going to be completely 100% accurate, and it'll mean when I'm knitting all the projects that I want to knit, I'll know exactly what I have, and it feels so fulfilling and just a massive mental relief, to be honest. In the same way as decluttering does generally, I guess this is decluttering of the stash, not that I've gotten rid of anything yet. I will go through again once it's all catalogued properly and see what I might want to let go and de-stash. There were a couple of things I found straight away that I knew could go. I've mentioned before, a couple of ladies at my work who knit charity projects, a lot especially teddies, to go to Wheelchairs for Kids charities. So I gave several big bags of that, so they were very excited. But yeah, I'm going to have another look through, but it was really inspiring as well to know that I had these amazing items or tools really that I can create with. I was watching lovely Isabel on Fluffy Fibers yesterday. Hi Isabel. She was talking about how, it was her sewing episode, but she was talking about how she had enough stash fabric for her Make 9 projects. I think she's doing 12 for sewing actually, Make 12. And she said she was going to knit from stash, but it wasn't restrictive, a feeling of restriction. It was a feeling of wonder that you had all this stuff to use, and I completely agree. Now that I've gone through everything and I've seen it again, I've reminded myself what's there, it's organised so I know how much there is. It's really got the creative juices flowing. So things I was already planning, I've been able to match up yarn. Yeah, cannot recommend it enough. If it's something you've been wanting to do, or if you even haven't thought about it or whatever, some of you may have it done that way all the time and completely know what I mean already, but yeah, could not recommend it enough. And I also think it's really helped my mental health as well. I think that decluttering in general can help with general feelings of anxiety, but I do have an anxiety disorder. So decluttering, which I've been doing towards the end of last year, more into this year, I've been going through the pantry, reorganising that, putting things into glass jars that I've been collecting, really looking at avoiding food waste. I spoke about last week about preparing meals in advance and all that. It's been fantastic. Because a quick health update, I think I mentioned in an episode last year that I had come off the anti-anxiety medication I was taking, and I will clarify here again as I clarified then. I have no issue whatsoever with people taking medication, so coming off it wasn't a judgment of that or anything, it was just where I was at the time. However, I've now gone back on the anti-anxiety medication because I needed to, and that's fine. So I'll put out here, if you're struggling or feeling badly in any way, I really would recommend reaching out to someone, seeing a professional. It might be something that's relevant for you, not that medication is right for everyone. There's different things that work for different people. If you want to reach out to me, if you're needing to talk about anything, I'm more than happy to do that. I think we as a society need to make mental health just the same as having any other condition. You know, I speak about my rheumatoid arthritis openly. There's no reason mental health conditions shouldn't be the same conversation. So yeah, reach out, don't hold it in. Yeah. So yeah, beginning of the year, or a couple of weeks ago, I started feeling really, really depressed. I have depression as well, but the anxiety usually is higher than the depression, but this was taking over. And what, you know, I'd been feeling a bit not quite right for a few weeks, but what really brought it home to me was that I needed to go and speak to someone. I didn't want to knit. I had no interest in knitting. I was still doing it because I was just making myself. But yeah, that, you know, a big sign of depression is when you no longer find joy in things that you used to like. Knitting really brings me joy. Knitting is not an obsession in a bad way, but as I'm sure if you're watching a knitting podcast, you understand what I mean. So yeah, I went and spoke to my GP, and they have increased my medication, and I took a couple of days off work, and just, yeah, really refocused, and I think that's really helped. And then yeah, going through my stash, getting that organized, not having the chaos. You know, it wasn't that bad. It was all in one contained location, but you know, things were all over the place, didn't know what was there in a lot of times. So having it organized, having it clear in my mind, bringing that inspiration, it's definitely helped my mental health as well. So that is another really happy thing, and I'm really pleased about it. So I cannot wait to get started knitting more of the beautiful stash that I have. And of course, while knitting the beautiful stash, I like to watch and listen to podcasts, a lot of them knitting ones, but not all. So a couple I wanted to tell you about that are, one is new and one is new to me. The new one is Gal and Kitten Knittin'. They're up to episode 3 and you can find them on YouTube. And they're lovely. It's just great hearing from Gal and Kitten, that's their nicknames. And they describe themselves in the latest episode as experienced beginners, I think they said, or yeah, I can't remember what terminology they use, but they're both relatively new at knitting, perhaps a year or so. But yeah, really great chemistry, they're best friends, so I'd really recommend that one. It's a lot of fun. The one that is new to me, but has been going for a while, and I just didn't realise, is the Quirky Monday podcast, or Craftcast, and that is with the lovely Kalisha, who is Indira Tani on Instagram. And that's how I found out about it, because I've been following Kalisha as Nadira Tani, and I saw she posted about her latest episode, and I was like, how did I not know you had a podcast? So I've actually been working through her back catalogue. I haven't quite caught up yet, but that's another really lovely one. I've really been enjoying it. So that one's definitely another recommend. And the other one is a non-knitting podcast, and it's an audio one. The other two are both on YouTube videos. This audio is The Mindful Kind, and it's by Rachel Cable, who's an Australian podcaster, and she also works in the field of mindfulness, psychology and mindfulness. She's such a relaxing voice. If you like Australian accents, she's got it going in spades, but very calm, beautiful speaking. Quite short episodes, so they're really good from the go, or if you just need a little pick up in reminding about being mindful. I think she's up to about episode 115 or something, so I'm still working my way through that back catalogue as well. But yeah, really recommend it. Some really great ideas about mindfulness, and it's really relaxing, so definitely another one to go and listen to. In terms of listening, I've been rereading, but listening to The Order of the Phoenix, the Harry Potter book, and it's read by Stephen Fry. Oh, just wonderful. A couple of years ago, I started listening to the podcast, to the audiobooks, to reread them, because I read them decades ago. And I think, yeah, I had listened to the first 4, so I was up to this one. But to be honest, it probably could have paid to go back to the beginning again, because there's so much I'd forgotten. It's been a long time since I read them. And I suppose, I've watched the movies a lot more recently than I've read the book, and I'd forgotten how vastly different a lot of the book is to the movie. So that's been great. It's almost like reading it for the first time. There's so much more to enjoy and experience. So I'm really listening to that. I think it was a 29-hour audiobook. I think I'm more than halfway through now. I've maybe got 15 hours to go. So definitely good value for money as well. But yeah, really enjoying that. And I'll probably make my way through the rest of them. I don't know if I'll go back to the beginning now. I'll probably just keep going forwards, and then maybe I'll start again. Towards the end of last year, I was listening to a lot of self-improvement books, things about minimalism, decluttering, tidying, mindfulness, all of those things. And I think that's really helped me and flowed into this stash decluttering and the pantry and getting more organised in that respect as well. So I'll speak more about them in a future episode, because there's quite a lot to go over, and I'll have some really good links for you as well. So if that's something you're interested in, do let me know. I'll probably still do it anyway. So, but if you are interested in a particular topic, let me know, because then I can go more into that as well. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing. There's so much out there to learn from and to be inspired by. So I'd love to inspire you as well by letting you know what some of those things were. With that, I'm out of coffee, I'm out of things to show you, so we might sign off for the day. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed making it for you. It's really lovely thing to do the podcasting. I really enjoy spending time with you. So thank you so much for giving me your greatest resource, your time. It's been great. So have a wonderful day or night, whatever it is you're doing. I hope there's something yummy in the fridge for you. Have a lovely time. Happy crafting, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.